Hello everybody, hope you're doing well. Welcome to, I think this is going to be the final video for Saturday the 30th of December. This is a video that's I think it's important to put out, and that is it's called 10 things I feel you should know before doing a Necropolis run and also future Necropolis runs. Some really important things, so let's get into it. So one of the first things is team selection. This is an incredibly important preparation and run, especially if you're looking for options to take on certain bits of content. So team-wise, I don't think there's necessarily a wrong or right type of creation of team. Again, depending on what you're trying to do. Here's some examples as well as kind of some key options. I'll try and devote a full video to like a long plethora of team options, but here's some. You know, you could go down the original route of going and using Aegon with Heimdall, with Proxima, with Doctor Doom, or changing that for Odin. It's very much down to you on that one. And a reverse control based immunity champion like Wiccan, like Juggernaught, for example. But there are other options. It's not just about Aegon. So here's Piccolo, for example, had Kate, Wiccan, America Chavez, and Shuri. And whether or not there's another champion there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, well, not Kate. That's kind of like doubled up. But you know what I mean. Like there could be one other slot for an additional champion, with kind of like 5 main. Well, that's the main 5 champion or 4 champion options, whatever it is. So look, those are the main kind of like options right there. Or you could use Adam Warlock, Kate Bishop, Absorbing Man. Look, that's an interesting team selection right there. You know, America Chavez again comes up. Adam Warlock comes up. Obviously, Wiccan and Absorbing Man, Kate. Look, all of those are key champions. So many different champion options that people have used. Look, this is one of the options right here. This is from Cam's thread, which, if I remember, I'll put a link to in the description. Really interesting thread. Aegon being one of the main champions. Heimdall to kind of like keep the champion alive and intercede, so it means that you're able to do a bit more damage towards the kind of like ending point. Proxima, of course, in order to grab those combos, which is going to be very important for that champion. Odin, of course, to like really ramp up, maybe take on some other champions, and Wiccan as being the champion to reverse control immunity, which is going to be very important as well. So team selection is always very specific. You could even use the likes of I think there's actually loads, but look, Baron Zemo, that's another one that a lot of people use. Onslaught, I've heard of people using as well. There are tons of options with team. But one of the big things is that changes with teams might be micro to certain things, like Airwalker, for example. I decided to use Doctor Doom against this. I actually found that this was an incredibly valuable change in addition to my team. Some would say no, some would say yes. Also, I've seen people say about other champions and using specific option counters for that one. There is as well a good shout to at least bring in maybe a Human Torch for Dragonman. I didn't personally, but again, it's just down to personal perspective of what you think is going to be a nuisance to you. The second thing that I'd mention is something that people have criticized myself or pointed out my failings in opening up, say, the rank 2 to 3 gem after your completion first, and then opening up class specific options against it. So here's an example, and people have said maybe you shouldn't have done it this way, Rich. Maybe that's a lot more polite in the way that people have have going to explain it to me. But yeah, look, maybe I should have opened up my 7-star rank up gem, revealing the science one, and then gone all in on science for the 2 class-based choices of heroes. So therefore, I may have had more options than just having Spider-Man or Spider-Gwen as being my rank 2 to 3 option in the future. So look, I get it. I understand where people are coming from on that. Obviously, it's down to personal perspective and personal choice, and we'll see what happens with that, because I'm not Valiant yet, so I don't necessarily have to make a decision. But you make a decision, but do bear in mind, if you're looking to be quite specific on who you're ranking up, you may need to open up your gem first, then open up your class specific crystals to then get yourself, you know, the whatever class comes out as your 2 to 3 gem. The third tip that I give you is try and aim for the amount of revives that you'll need for the expedition into a path of Necropolis. So how many revives in a nutshell would you need? It's down to each individual person. I tried to put in, or say, 100 revives. I think that's kind of like a fair assessment. Things might go well, things might go bad. I had some fights where it was like a two-shot. I had other fights where it was like, okay, well, this is going to take a few more revives. And of course, going up against the Grandmaster, depending on how things go, and depending on rotation, how things go with certain champion choices, it could be a case you'll use a few more revives than you want to, or a few less revives than you want to, but it's down to personal perspective. Whether or not you go with a budget of saying, okay, 100 revives, that's equivalent to 4,000 units per path, to give you an example. I didn't go into any of my units, so I was really happy with my performance of my first time. That doesn't mean to say like I'm happy with the fact that I got so many deaths, but hey, Road to the Crypt is on at the moment and you've got to help out where you can. So budget for that's going to be a very important thing. And of course, do bear in mind, Kabam are going to nerf some of the lower revive refarming areas, so it's important to understand that 4,000 units, 100 revives, and also free crystals, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure to hoard your free crystals. Now, I'm out of free crystals because I decided to pop them all open in preparation for my next Necropolis run, which is happening very, very soon. Fourth thing to mention is the phases of the Grandmaster. I didn't actually think the champion was as bad as people made him out to be, but look, here's the thing. There's going to be some intricacies to how the champion plays out. Different phases means different types of games. The first one, if you're familiar with the Squid Games, you'll know red light, green light, or the game in general, red light, green light, and you will have to follow the process of when to hit, when not to hit, but also some of the tokens and how the tokens work, especially because you will have to make sure to ban certain attacks you're going to be doing. So start that off by doing the parry heavy, and then do the dexterity, land light attack and stuff like that. Follow the processes to getting wounded. Look, if you face against Grandmaster, you'll know this is exactly the same. It's just variations. I'm not going to go into too much details about like this because this is down to, you know, you getting into the fight and kind of understanding it yourself. I think it's invaluable. I mean, it's good to see what other people are doing, how they're showcasing stuff. But I do think that it's down to you kind of like playing out, maybe even pausing the screen as things happen. There will be little breaks in between the phases, so you'll get a little bit of time to sort things out. And of course, there's other things that Grandmaster says, Simon says, you know, if the Grandmaster says do this, you do it. If the Grandmaster didn't say it, you know, then don't do it. You know, Grandmaster says do a crit. Do a crit. Do a debuff. Do a damaging debuff. Well, Grandmaster didn't say it, did he? So kind of don't do it. So there's a lot of stuff when it comes to that. If I'm being honest, if you've got certain champions, you could just kind of like revive farm, not revive farm, but just kind of eat revives into it and just kind of smash it through that. I think I ended up doing it with Aegon, mainly because I just got a bit bored with it. Sometimes it does feel like that, and you're like, just get the fight done. And then when you get onto like the further phases, like the phase like phase 3, where it's inverted controls, or reverse controls, then yeah, like this is, you will start degenning down to 1%, and that's at the point where you're like, okay, well, you got to play well. That's the thing, you got to play well to kind of like get through it. But I used Wiccan, I want to say, for a good chunk of this, but also I ended up using a bit of Aegon just to strip down health. And obviously champions that do a great amount of damage will strip health quickly. You've just got to make sure you know about instead where your kind of thumb is swiping to the point of going like, look, I swipe left to go right, and I swipe right to go left, and remembering that. Maybe doing light attacks, you know, tapping on the screen as opposed to kind of like doing mediums, because it will shoot you backwards. It could be a case of rotating around that and kind of like figuring out, you know, the best way to do it. But get involved with it. The best thing to do is get in there, make mistakes, and understand the fight through the hard way. That way you can then improve your own skill set. I always like, you know, playing, if you make errors, you can make improvements from it. If you're kind of playing, if you think you're going to go in it and play perfectly, no, it ain't going to happen. It ain't going to happen at all. Oh, and the final phase I forgot to mention is that you'll need to do an intercept. You'll need to do an SP1, an SP2, an SP3 in that order. And because it kind of like goes from fight to fight, it means that like if you did the SP1 one and an SP2 one, you got to go back to 0, and that's fair. So it means that when you go back in again with the revive, it's like build up to an SP3 and smash them. Tip number 5 is prep your path. That's one thing that I would say is really important, is prep what path, what champions you're going to face off against, what's on your route, what's going to be a pain point, and kind of like judging that before going anywhere, because it could be one path that kind of like works like pretty well. You know, here's a good example. Like I could do and I might actually do this. I might do like one of the various paths that I kind of feel that I might do the Odin path next, mainly because I think that it's not too bad as a path. It's not too bad. Not ridiculously good, but not ridiculously bad. So yeah, I might do that one next, except for, you know, there's a few fights that are a bit scuffy, but apart from that, you know, I think that it could be a very good path for me to do. But we'll see, you know, we'll see with that. But look, plan your path. The easy path is meant to be the green path, and shout out to Charles Wang on this one. Links in the description to this. You know, Titania, Vision Arcus, although that's a pain in the butt unless you bring, you know, good counter for that. But every path has its pain points, so good luck to everybody. Number 6, changing masteries. Now, I've seen some people say about like having a certain mastery setup for this. And by the way, make sure to use that singular extra mastery point, which I've got to sort out over the weekend. But I'm really busy at the moment, and me and Em are trying to spend some time together, so it's important, you know, to fill that before getting back into, like, you know, ranking up champions, sorting out my relics, sorting out my masteries, going back into Necropolis. So many things need to be done. But look, sort it out as to your own liking. I've seen some people say, well, at parts of the fight I was in Suicide Masteries, and the next part I was switching to that. And it's like, that's where the units spend for some people were in, that's where they got that's the charge, really, of units. So, like, be careful. I didn't change my masteries at all. Do I have the best mastery setup? No, I don't. Not by a long shot. But here's the thing. Change it to how you feel. It's going to benefit the champions you're taking in. Be careful if you're going to spend a lot of units on your mastery setups. And go farm units if you plan to change them very regularly. So, do bear that in mind depending on your mastery setup. Next, use boosts. Something that I tried to do is make sure I manage how many boosts I was using. I'm down to a low amount of boosts right now. That's between the champion ones. That's between you can get a lot of those for free, but I would say one of the benefits is kind of popping those on and doing a session. Maybe putting a timer on and going, okay, for 1 hour I'll use a greater attack boost. You know, for 15 minutes I'm going to use the health boost, for example. Getting more of these is actually a very easy process, and you know, I've got to top up mine right now. I do a lot of solo events, and also some of the other events that are kind of like popping up in there. So I'll always hoard back a good chunk of solo crystals, and regardless if I have or haven't buffed them, at least popping open some like I'm doing right now and putting some extra boosts in. And even with the arena boosts, I'm close to getting milestones. I'll go and use them right now in the content. Maybe it's the 5 stars being used in making a quick dash into a catalyst based arena. Maybe it's going into maybe it's going to grab some milestones of units in another type of arena. It just largely depends on how you want to approach this, but make sure to hoard those crystal shards, hoard those boosts, and use them when the right time is applicable. Number 8, farming revives. A very important thing nowadays. Go and farm revives. Look, lower content to farm revives is going to be nerfed at some stage. There are a few places along old variants or classics, the back issues classics. You can actually find opportunities, and of course, going into some of the older content can give some revives from that. But do bear in mind, Kabam are going to nerf it, so maybe it's the time to kind of like get your headspace into like other places to go. Go and use Apothecary, go and use and go and do solo events. Like, here's the thing, like tonight, because I'm recording this on Saturday, I will be farming a bit of arena and also grabbing some of that arena wins right there for that revive, that level 2 revive. And of course, banking that, there's 14 days rotation on those expiring. Also, you can wait a few days before claiming the rewards from your stash, so you can keep them kind of floating about. I don't know if it's advisable because you could miss out on them. But the final thing is to go into arena, use arena boost to get to milestones quickly, and just go and grab those milestones to get the units. Do bear in mind, like 10 times 40 units spend, that's 400 units. So if that's 10 revives right there with it. I've tried to say to myself, don't try and dip into your 20,000 units you've got. Try and hold them and kind of build on them as much as possible. But look, you know, if I'm close to 1,600, that is the equivalent to 40 revives. And that ain't too bad to help out. And I might even do that as a regular thing, you know, save at 1,600 units and get myself out of trouble by going farming arena whilst I'm having a bit of a break away from Necropolis, because it is, as many people have said, quite grueling. It is very time consuming and it can get a little bit boring. So maybe breaking up the monotony is a very good idea. So tip number 9 is all about practicing rotations. Now I don't know if people would kind of like do this, but trying to practice rotations with against the Grandmaster is a bit of an iffy one. What I mean by that is going to something like Practice, like I've got here, and like getting to a champion that's a slow SP1 like this, and kind of waiting around their block, evade, hit through, like all those things you've got to do. Like, look, I might be sounding like I'm going mad, but if you go to Practice, and yes, there's not a Grandmaster Practice, that's the point I'm trying to make here. What I just did in that little moment was me doing practicing an evade swipe, looking to kind of go like the slow movement of something like King Groot's kind of like, I don't know, rooty mace type thing, is me kind of like going, okay, well, I practice the evade, practice the swipe forward, and practice the block. So those are the things. When the Grandmaster throws an SP1, look, you once you're in that fight, there's no going back, there's no practice. But what you can do is maybe focus on doing some, I don't know, Winter Soldier fighting, maybe practice mode because it's free for energy consumption, and just practice that kind of like, well, movement, block an attack, hit through on that SP1 throw, and something to that kind of like degree. And I'll just try and see if I can illustrate the point again. So if I can get to throw and throw the SP1 there, and we'll throw through like that. And you might be wondering, Rich, you got hit. Right, that's the point. Because what I'm trying to do is look out for projectiles, or look out at a movement on an SP1 from a defender, just so I can get that muscle memory there, that when it comes out of a certain type of prompt, so it's got the top right hand corner, block an attack, and evade an attack, hit or kind of like, attack one of the projectiles, then at least I've got that kind of muscle memory in place, like more commonly, to do that. It's a bit of a weird thing. I'm probably people think I'm a bit nuts with that, but I don't know. It's all about kind of getting muscle memory in place. And a final tip is, or final thing to mention is power boosts. So if you get an opportunity to use power boosts, like try and do it. I also would say that if you get to a certain point and say you're using Mystic Champions like Wiccan, Wiccan, what's Professor X people may use, but mainly Juggernaught as well. They're Mystic based champions. Mystic Dispersion will be very important and very handy. I didn't use Mystic Dispersion for mine when I was using those champions, which you can see right there. But what I did do instead is, in that last 1% for the Grandmaster, you need to throw special attacks, an SP1, an SP2, and an SP3. There is an option to use some boosts that are able to, this here, the power boost. So you've got the special attacks 2 and 3 of your Mystic Champions restore 150% of the power meter based on the damage they dealt, which is going to be important if you're looking to do the SP3 straight after. It would be more advantageous to have yourself set up, if you are using a Mystic Champion, with Mystic Dispersion. But again, that does boil down to how you are personally setting up to do a Necropolis run. But again, down to personal preference on that one. But I would say look out for potentially using Mystic Power Boost, or whatever champion power boost you're using as maybe your reverse control champion, or indeed, different classes that you might be using Aegon, you might be using a different champion. But look, down to personal perspective of who you're choosing and what you're doing and how you're rotating. But those have been 10 things that are important to know when doing your first run in Necropolis, and as well multiple runs, or like maybe doing like another path or something. But that's been a video. I hope you enjoyed it. I put information in the description with some links to some things that are helpful. I probably will be doing another couple of guides on this in the coming few days, especially as I go back into Necropolis for a second time. Thanks for watching. Check out some other content which will be located on the screen right now, and I'll see you all for the final day of the year. Lots of things to cover, and things that I've got to catch up on recording and things. Okay, thanks, bye.